What are we waiting for? Let's get the Monday edition of the Morning Brief started.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up. S3.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Africa 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
Yeah, let's start this morning's briefing session with your morning brief in brief with Melissa Puta. Melissa, good morning. Let's start with the consequences of the funding cuts that were introduced by the U.S. Trump administration. Tell me how they are affecting universities and their funding.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. South African universities are facing a major funding crisis following the U.S. aid freeze that has left 13 institutions with a $1.4 billion in outstanding funds, severely disrupting key research, especially in health and climate science. The freeze stems from February executive order from the White House affecting major projects funded by the U.S. agencies like USAID, CDC, and NIH. University South Africa has applied for $2 billion in emergency relief from the National Treasury via the Department of Higher Education on behalf of top universities in the country. So far, Treasury has said that it has not received a formal request. The fallout obviously is affecting them in quite a number of ways, including terminated contracts, stalled projects, compromised postgraduate support, and job losses. So the universities are seeking urgent relief. However, other organizations have emphasized the need for local solutions to reduce foreign aid dependency and ensure long-term research sustainability in the country.
Yeah. Tell me about this now, a breakthrough in that case of the teenager who was abducted in Bloemfontein by men posing as police officers?
So the Free State Police have arrested a 42-year-old police sergeant in a major breakthrough in the kidnapping case of 19-year-old Kamkhelo Bukhodi, who was abducted in Bloemfontein by men posing as policemen. Bukhodi, a grade 11 learner, was pulled over while driving from school by suspects in a Toyota Hilux fitted with blue lights. Posing as police officers, the men claimed that the vehicle was linked to drugs and instructed him to get out, and later stole from him and other unfortunate incidents. The Provincial Police Commissioner, Lieutenant Baile Butswenyane, condemned the involvement of the SAPS police members, and they are expected to be in court today.
And 22,000 people or thereabouts were taking part or were expected to take part in the Comrades Marathon yesterday. And other than the winners and the elite runners and, all the others, the one runner that was watched very closely wore bib number 37137. That is Charles Mnisi. Tell me about him.
So social media was in high spirits watching Advocate Charles Mnisi. He became a trending topic after participating in the 2025 Comrades Marathon. While he is quite busy with the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial at the same time. Though he completed the race in over 10 hours, he did receive public praise for his perseverance, despite the presiding judge president in his case strongly condemning his absence from court, calling it irresponsible and disrespectful to the seriousness of the case. The judge emphasized the prolonged suffering of the Meyiwa family and criticized Misi for prioritizing a personal event over his legal duties. Meanwhile, congratulations also poured in Titi, Dijana and Gedana's Stains Way, who were crowned 2025 Ultraman and Ultrawoman respectively this year.
All right, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief. And of course, that story, the element that has to do with the judge's comments, we will reflect on it in the second hour, as I said, at the top of 7.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah, so there's lots to tell you on the weather front, as you can imagine. You can almost feel it. So I will give you all the warnings and then go straight to the temperatures. So let's start. The first one is a yellow level 6 warning. It is for disruptive snow resulting in danger to life, pass closures and communities cut off, and those conditions are expected over the Gautrain district municipality as well as the Enoch Mgijima, that is known as Molteno. It says in bracket here Molteno and Matatiele local municipalities in the Eastern Cape. We have an orange level 6 warning, and it is for disruptive rain leading to flooding of settlements or property, roads, as well as danger to life, with some communities temporarily cut off. And those conditions are expected in places over Amatole and OR Tambo district municipalities, as well as Buffalo City Metro in the Eastern Cape. Then there's an orange level 5 warning. It is for disruptive rain leading to danger to life, flooding and displacements of settlements, as well as mudslides. And those conditions expected over the Alfred Nzo district municipality, Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, in the Eastern Cape, and that includes the following local municipalities: Makana, Ndlambe, Sundays River Valley, Kouga and Koukama. Then we have a yellow level 2 warning. It is for disruptive snow leading to loss of livestock, minor passes closed, and traffic disruptions due to snow and icy roads. That is expected over the Chris Hani District Municipality of the Eastern Cape, as well as the following local municipalities: Dr. Beyers Nodier, which is in Graaff-Reinet, Raymond Mhlaba, Amahlati, and Umzimvubu. And then a yellow level 2 warning for disruptive rain leading to localized flooding of settlements and roads expected in places over Gautrain and Chris Hani district municipalities of the Eastern Cape, as well as the following local municipalities: Blue Crane Route and Dr. Beyers Nodier. Then a yellow level 2 warning, damaging waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea expected between Saldanha Bay and Plettenberg Bay in the morning. And then lastly, a yellow level 2 warning. It is for severe thunderstorms leading to heavy downpours resulting in localized flooding, large amounts of small hail and damaging winds, and that is expected over the southern and eastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Your temperatures for the main cities: Pretoria 9 to 15, Johannesburg 7 to 12, Mbombela 11 to 19, Polokwane 5 to 19, Mahikeng 6 to 12, Bloemfontein 6 to 9, Kimberley 3 to 9, Uppington 4 to 12, Cape Town 9 to 15, George 7 to 15, Gqeberha 11 to 16, East London 12 to 17, Durban 17 to 21, Richards Bay 17 to 24, and lastly Pietermaritzburg 11 to 17.
Gordon Ramsay is back, and your favorite kitchen disasters are still somehow in business. New season, same confused chefs, terrifying walk-ins, and enough grease to fry your Wi-Fi. Watch as Gordon tries to fix the unfixable with nothing but sheer rage, British sarcasm, and an iron stomach. Kitchen Nightmares Season 8, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Come for the food, stay for the emotional damage.
It's a game of two halves, represented by two national flags. and both nations are chasing victory to bring joy to their citizens. This is more than just an international friendly. It is the Southern African Derby. Mzansi's Bafana Bafana face the Mambas of Mars. Catch the incredible action of African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June at 7 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Yeah, let's turn to this now. In an extraordinary move not seen since 1992, U.S. troops attached to the country's hybrid military structure, the National Guard, are patrolling the streets of Los Angeles and clashing with protesters, and they're operating under federal command. And that's the really rare element of the deployment. The country's President Donald Trump has ordered the National Guard in after clashes erupted between, on the one hand, protesters opposing operations in the city by the country's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, and on the other hand, law enforcement agents attached to that agency known as ICE. The National Guard is a hybrid military entity that serves both state and federal interests, and its default mode is to operate under state command and control, with provision for rare deployment within the country's borders to quell a breakdown in law and order. So let's speak to Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. How rare is this incidence of the deployment of the National Guard on the streets of a major city in the United States?
Morning, Thulas. Yes, indeed, it's extraordinary. That National Guard is really designed as a reserve force to assist the nation in times of real crisis, a natural disaster, an earthquake, something with a very large impact, a sudden event. And it has been used before, but not to quell a local riot around the removal of undocumented immigrants. It's the first time that this has happened. And I think we need to see this in the slightly larger perspective of one of the election promises that Donald Trump is making good when he came to power, when he arrived at the White House, which is one of the foundations of the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, is the idea that America seems to be overrun deliberately by foreign aliens, as they call them, undocumented immigrants, particularly from South America, but also elsewhere in the world, and that it is his administration's task and purpose to remove these people almost immediately and as fast as possible. And they've created this ICE department, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, to do exactly that. And they've removed tens of thousands of people so far, and they're now moving into LA, which we know is a city known for its immigrant population. I mean, 50% is Latino. So this federal institution, under the direction of the political administration, has moved in, and they've clamped down on people who work in downtown LA, Los Angeles, particularly in the service industry, restaurants and T-shirt shops and so on and so forth. But they do it with particular brute force. These ICE agents wearing camouflage uniforms, heavily armed, big vehicles and so on. And of course, the citizens and the mayor of LA and the governor of the state of California has risen up in protest and said that this is completely unnecessary, the way that you do this. And when the riots broke up, when people rose up against this kind of very brutal move by the Trump administration, California said, the authorities there said, we know how to deal with this. We've dealt with this before. We can deal with it again. And Donald Trump said, no, I'm sending in the big guns to deal with this decisively. And what we see now in the last few days, including last night when we were sleeping,
Yeah.
is indeed, very disturbing images.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, a professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning to you. The 98th Comrades Marathon delivered unforgettable drama. Tete Dijana claiming his third men's title with a thrilling finish, crossing from Pietermaritzburg to Durban just 5 seconds ahead of the defender Piet Wiersma. Meanwhile, in the women's race, Gerda de Steen captured her fourth career title, completing as well the course, her third consecutive victory with over 22,000 runners taking part. A first ever two-wave start. The marathon showing South Africa's enduring passion for ultra-endurance sport. Let's hear now from the men's title winner, Tete Dijana.
We came with the race plan, but it didn't work for my captain. But I was very light, and I could feel that I could move. But my first 30 kilometers, it was a little bit harder. I didn't get enough rest yesterday. I think maybe it's anxiety or something.
Let's go to soccer. Angola's Depo moved joint top of all-time scorers list in the COSAFA Cup. He netted a hat-trick to help his team to a 4-0 victory over Lesotho in their Group B clash that took place at Dr. Petrus Molimela Stadium in Mangaung yesterday. And we also had Namibia and Malawi playing to a goalless draw in the other fixture in the pool. Elsewhere, Kylian Mbappe scored his 50th international goal, France beating the Nations League host Germany 2-0 in their third place playoff, and Portugal beating neighbours Spain 5-3 in a penalty shootout to settle a final in Munich and win their second Nations League trophy. And finally, tennis in a match destined for the history books. Carlos Alcaraz overcame a 2-set deficit, saved 3 championship points to defeat Yannick Sinner 4-6, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6 in a marathon 5 hours 29 minutes final, making it the longest in French Open history. Here's the champion, Carlos Alcaraz.
This one was the most exciting match that I've played so far, without a doubt. Today I think the match had everything. Really good moments, really bad moments. Just really happy and proud about how I deal with everything today. It wasn't easy. The first match that I came back from 2 sets to love down. I think it wasn't a better occasion to do it in the final of a Grand Slam.
Well, the champions are rewriting the rules of endurance here on the Morning Brief. We'll be back top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Department of Education in the Free State has commended the swift response by police following the arrest of a police officer in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old Kamogelo Baukudi. The officer was brought in for questioning after being linked to the vehicle used in the abduction. A 57-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the death of a 51-year-old woman following an alleged domestic assault incident in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape. And protests against immigration raids have flared up for a third day in Los Angeles, with demonstrators confronting police and security forces. National Guard units ordered by President Donald Trump have used tear gas and rubber bullets. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Crash out on Bayers Nordera Juice in the Honeydew area. Just watch for some congestion around that one. Also, a collision on Joburg's N3 North. Not a great place to happen. It's a busy route going north on that N3 this time of morning. It's up by Linksfield Road. So basically, you got 2 joined up queues. Ilan's to Giluli's, which is normal. And then from Giluli's up towards Edenvale, very slow going. The Mike 1's a bit unusual this morning as well, from sort of Uncle Charlie's or Monday right through to about Oxford Road in Parktown. It's a lot worse than normal. normal. A busy start to conditions out of Pretoria with the M1 sitting between Brockfontein and New Road territory. Just north of Durban, Masebalala Yengwa remains closed. That's to clear away the finish line from yesterday. So Comrades, all the sort of infrastructure around that finish line has to be taken down and packed up and shipped out. So Masebalala Yengwa expected to be closed until tomorrow morning. Van Riemen's, Harry Smith Swinburne, okay, but we would urge you to check before you travel, considering what's in the forecast for the next 24, 48 hours. And Cape Town, no traffic lights. Stellenbosch Arterial at Westbank Main coming through from Blackheath heavy, and Baden-Powell Drive sitting in quite a heavy backlog going towards Muizenberg in towards the Strandfontein Road junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning and of the week, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, let's start in the United States. Tell me about this data that's out about the levels of hiring in that country. Ndauling? Right, I don't know what is going on. We'll see if we can redial Ndauling there to give us that update, because part of what she'll be telling us is hiring figures slowing down a bit in the United States. It's part of the many sets of data that Ndauling monitors for us, particularly coming through from such a major economy such as that of the United States. And also among what the other stories that she'll be telling you about is news about the US-China trade talks, which we are told are going to resume. You will know, of course, that last week the US president imposed tariffs on steel and aluminium, and China had viewed that as being a backtracking on the progress they were making in terms of their trade relationships. So now we do have Ndauling back on the line with us. Ndauling, let's start with that data coming out about US hiring figures slowing. All right. That does seem to be a bit of a challenge. Ndauling, we'll come back to you a bit later on. That's Ndauling Lechela. Let's see what we can fix on our side, and then we'll pick up that report with Ndauling a bit later on.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, let's see if we can get Sipho Mandula to give us the Africa update. And Sipho, let's start with Rwanda and quitting the ECCAS. Tell me about that. Which structure is this, and why are they quitting?
Africa Update on SAFM.
All right, there seem to be lots of problems. Let me see what I can do in the meantime. Of course, you can give us a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes. We do have a bit of a challenge with the lines this morning, but, that would be on 061 410 4107. So among the stories that are still coming up that we will tell you a bit later on, of course, is that story about Oscar Pistorius and his participation in the Ironman. That is the triathlon that took place in Durban last week. The United Democratic Movement Women's Organization being among those that have weighed in on it and basically not impressed at all, saying that it is a painful symbol of the country's failing justice system. You will remember, of course, that Pistorius has been on parole since January last year, and there were strict conditions that were placed by correctional services. So we'll report on that in the next few minutes. But let's see if we can get you your Africa update for this morning.
Africa Update on SAFM.
All right, let's go straight to Sipho Mandula. Raz, good morning. Let's start with Rwanda quitting the ECCAS. Which body is this? Please remind me.
Professional Africa to this cold morning and community.
Now, sorry, Sipho, the line is just not good enough. It's that kind of a day. It's a Monday morning. I suppose the systems are still warming up to it. The lines are just not great. Of course, there is that weather element, and I did see that there's a fair amount of work being done on the subsea cable, and I think that's one of the factors in terms of internet connectivity. The subsea cable with the West Africa to the south, I'm told that there's some work being done there, maintenance work that is being done. And I saw an article explaining that you may be experiencing a bit of a slow response in as far as your internet is concerned. So a lot of our systems are internet-based. Let's see if we can pick up on a normal, ordinary line with Sipho Mantula. Raz, let me confirm. Can I hear you now?
Loud and clear, Thulas. Refresh your morning.
Perfect. Got you. All right. Let's pick up now, Sipho, on Rwanda quitting the ECCAS. Tell me which body this is and why Rwanda is quitting it.
Thulas, this is one of the regional economic bodies in the Great Lakes known as Economic Community of Central African States. There was a meeting over this weekend in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. Rwanda pulling out as it was expected to become the president for this year in 2026, raising the issue of their tension with the Eastern DRC. And that's where we are finding the disintegration now to us from the from the Economic Community of Central African States, made out of Angola, Burundi, Cameroon, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, DRC, as well as Sao Tome, Principe and Chad. Now, this is worrying to us, as we know, of the tension that has been going on, and Rwanda pulling out. It's the same what we've seen in the Sahel, and this is worrying to us. As we are talking about regional integration, we're talking about African solidarity and unity, but Rwanda pulling out over this weekend.
Sure. And then tell me about what happened in Liberia. Why is the former speaker being charged with arson?
Thulas, remember the burning of parliament last year in December? The same Speaker of Parliament was accused with many accusations from poor governance, corruption, conflict of interest. But over the weekend, the police are saying that there are credible links that suggest that the former speaker has been involved in this incident and other 5 lawmakers. Now, the government of Liberia, it is not taking it easy to us. It is charging them on this, what happened on the 18th of December 2024 with the burning of parliament by the same members who are sitting in that parliament to us. And this is worrying, looking at Liberia under Joseph Boakai having some of the opposition members being accused of arson of the building of the state.
And tell me about Zambia and the country beginning a period of mourning for their former president, Edgar Lungu.
Thulas, President Hakainde Hichilema has accorded the state funeral to the 6th president of Zambia, who passed on in South Africa last week on Thursday, and saying that from yesterday the country all flags will fly half-mast Thulas until the 14th, and on Wednesday it is expected that the body of the former president will arrive in Zambia, and that's how there will be a state funeral being organized for the former President Edgar Lungu, who passed away at the age of 68.
All right, lastly, take me to your historical archive, Sipho. 9 June 1976. What happened?
To last 9 days just before the June 16 in 1976, 49 years ago, there was a protest by the students in Soweto. And that's a famous school that is also known as the Jewel of the West. That is Naledi High School. That's where the first signs of the unrest began in Soweto in 1976, where students protesting about the use of Afrikaans in different subjects from your history, mathematics, and we know those who were involved in that school. Thulas, you will recall people like Reverend Frank Chikan, who were part of the school, Popomolefe, the seasoned journalist Opa Ngwenya, also Satolo was part of that school, Kyalebo Hawaha Mapunyas, Bongile Mkabela, Sadaf General, Dan Mufukin. Those were the students during that time, 1976, who were part of that protest during that time. As we know, this is the Soweto month, this is the youth month, and this is the beginning of what happened in 1976 on the 9th of June. Asante Sana Thulas also still leading the conversation, SFM, observing the youth month.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update for this morning.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Bafana are preparing for the World Cup qualifiers with 2 international friendlies against Tanzania on Friday, 6 June, and Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June 2025 in Polokwane. Both matches will be at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium at 7:30 p.m. The tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 60 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for children under 12, and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
17 minutes to 7 on this Monday. The United Democratic Movement Women's Organization has strongly condemned Oscar Pistorius' recent return to public sports, calling it a grave insult to the memory of River Steenkamp and a painful symbol, they say, of South Africa's failing justice system. Pistorius, who was convicted of murdering Steenkamp in 2013, competed in the Ironman 70.3-kilometer triathlon in Durban last weekend, his first athletic appearance since being released on parole in January last year. So let's speak to Thandino Ntenja, who is an MP of the UDM, but also the party's Women's Organization Secretary General. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What about Oscar Pistorius' participation in that sporting event irks you as the UDM Women's Organization? He is on parole, after all, with certain conditions until at least 2029.
Good morning to you and the listeners. This is an insult to all the victims of gender-based violence in South Africa. We all know that at the moment the country has a pandemic that is reaching a crisis point for femicide. To have him on parole is one thing. To have him participating in public sports and all that as if nothing had happened, it's heart-rendering for the family that lost a child who will never participate in anything, not even her own birthday.
Yeah. So reportage quoting the Department of Correctional Services tells us that the department had approved his participation. And Singabako Ngumalo, who speaks on behalf of the department, is quoted as saying, and I quote here, there was no breach in terms of his parole conditions.
Because we have a justice system in South Africa that favors the criminals at the expense of the victim. Nobody can explain how do they get that, because, the sentences are not the same. The crimes are not the same. When somebody takes a life, why does that person still get a parole and all that, and still be granted, while still on parole, be granted to go and play sports? It means the victim's life means nothing. We have a flawed justice system in this country. If it's not the police failing to do investigation or losing the docket, it's going to be the magistrate or the judge that's going to grant bail or give a sentence that's next to nothing. The last one on the value chain is the correctional services. They grant parole as if it's just Father Christmas giving sweets to the kids.
So at the point at which they released Oscar Pistorius on parole last year, the Department of Correctional Services made the point that says, and I quote from their statement, that an elevated public profile linked to Pistorius does not make him different from other inmates nor warrant inconsistent treatment. What about that argument that says if other parolees are able to participate, including participating in sport, I don't have, the facts and figures of how many people are placed on parole in every year and what conditions attach to them, but it's not unimaginable that some of them do participate in public activities. What about that argument that says he should not be treated differently because he enjoys a high profile.
That was the correct statement, but it means what they're saying they don't mean. We should be equal in front of the law. Your profile or how known you are or how good what you have provided, the minute you commit a crime, you should lose all that. The same applies to the right. A right to parole, a right to bail should cease. Once you start violating somebody else's rights, you should forfeit your own rights. We should be equal.
So are you saying to me...
that we are not equal. There isn't a history. There is no other former convict who is now a high-profile playing sports and doing this. We have this guy back there in front of our eyes. If I feel this way and I'm not related to the Steenkamp, you cannot imagine how are they feeling. It's a point where when he plays, he's going to appear on your screen. You have to switch off your own TV because you don't want to see the person.
Does it make a difference? Does it make a difference that this was not? As far as I understand, he wasn't participating as a professional athlete. This is a mass participation sport. We have no way of knowing that other parolees are not taking part in low-profile mass participation sports.
Well, we may not know. They are the ones who should be pointing out that. But even if there were others, it's still wrong. It doesn't make it right.
All right.
Because think of River Steenkamp. Where will she ever participate?
Yeah. Lastly, then, let me ask you this. What about the argument that says his participation in events such as this one is actually part of his rehabilitation and reintegration into society? That's the argument that was advanced, for example, by his lawyer, Conrad Dommel, who is quoted as saying this forms part of his rehabilitation into society. While he particularly enjoyed participating in the event and seems to have been beaten by the bug that is triathlon sport, he isn't eyeing any comeback into competitive running just yet.
Why does he deserve rehabilitation while River Steenkamp will never participate in anything? Why does he deserve that? He should. There is something that we should be sticking to.
Yeah.
You take a life, you get a life sentence. And the life sentence shouldn't be having a parole along the line.
I see.
Because the person is going to work towards that. And what this justice system of ours doesn't learn is that we have so many of the offenders who become re-offenders because they let them loose. I can give you the case of Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape where 18 people were killed and one of those people was a parolee.
Yeah. All right. No, thank you for that. That's Thandino Ntenja, who is an MP of the UDM, but also the Secretary General of the United Democratic Movement Women's Organization.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Start with an alert if you're in the Eastern Cape. There's been quite a big truck crash between Cathcart and Queenstown. That section of the N6 is closed. It looks like you'll have to reroute local routes through Whittlesea area. So factor in some extra time to get through that N6 closure and blockage down in the Eastern Cape. Busy start to Joburg traffic this Monday. A crash coming out of Benoni. N12 by Atlas Road. That's heavy. Back to Pitfontein. Collision on the N3 North at Linksfield. So delays coming up from Germiston, Alberton territory through Bedford, through Galulis. And of course, behind that, the N12 and R24 routes heavily backed up into Galulis to join that N3. And then just a lot of pressure coming in from the south. The N1's heavy through Deepcliff to Uncle Charlie's. The Mike 1 from Boyson's all the way to Parktown is jam-packed. Plenty of traffic slowing down on the R59 from Swartkoppies Road all the way through to Reading Interchange. The N3 at Spradeview slow up to Heidelberg Road as well. It's a busy start. Pretoria side, the Durham Port Plaza eastbound on on the N4 towards the N1. Some quite slow conditions there as well. A big truck crash up by Vilka Plaza in the Free State. Just watch for some delays. They've got a contraflow in operation past that. That N3 from Durban through to Joburg, likely to be reasonably busy today. A lot of Comrades runners taking today to come back after the grueling events of yesterday. Durban M7 from Huntsdeman into Pinetown, really heavy conditions there as well. Cape Town, N2 inbound, ramp onto the R300 north. There's a crash and lights are out on the Stellenbosch Arterial around Westbank and Main towards the R300. So again, just another big backlog of traffic out of Kales River, Blackheath heading along Stellenbosch Arterial towards Delft. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah, you're listening to the morning brief here on SAFM. It is absolutely great to be in your company. Just reflecting on that conversation that we just finished with Thandino Ntenja of the UDM. A lot of elements coming into that story around the granting of parole to Oscar Pistorius. She was making the point, I think, as far as I understood her, that there are issues that are systemic that will need to be addressed, that have to do with the whole system of parole that she says are being exposed by the granting of parole to Oscar Pistorius. But as I said, the Department of Correctional Services saying that there was no breach in terms of his parole conditions, and it was all approved for him to take part in that event that took place in Durban, the Ironman. So let's hear from someone who wants to weigh in on this, and it's Sabir in Joburg. Good morning to you, Sabir. Talk to me about this story around Oscar Pistorius. What's your thought on it?
My thought on the matter is that all this hullabaloo about him participating in sport is a storm in a teacup. We've got far better issues to worry about. If listeners care to look at the law regarding parole in South Africa, you find that parolees have the right to participate in any sports, in anything they want to, providing that they do not interfere with the condition of parole. So I hear what the lady has said, and I empathize with her. But at the same time, I think one should learn that forgiveness is a greater part of rehabilitation.
No, thank you for that. And I think I saw in the statement they were talking about the statement from last year, that is, they were talking about the parole conditions would include that he would be expected to be home at particular hours of the day, may not consume alcohol and other prohibited substances, participation in other programs that would have been identified by the Department of Correctional Services and the Parole Board. So you are saying this is part of the entire system that has to do with offender reintegration and rehabilitation.
Absolutely. And what is critical is that Oscar Pistorius is not, from my understanding, a threat anymore to society. He should be allowed to participate fully to his right, and the Constitution guarantees him that. We should not allow our personal prejudices to rule what is in the interest of society.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that, Sabir in Joburg there, weighing in on the parole situation and the parole conditions around Oscar Pistorius. By the way, by way of just reflecting what the position of June Steenkamp, the late Rieva Steenkamp's mother. In her response, she's quoted as having said that, basically through her lawyer, that no amount of time served by Oscar Pistorius could bring back Rieva Steenkamp and bring her back to life. The lawyer there emphasizing that June Steenkamp remains focused on Rieva's legacy and not on Oscar Pistorius's actions. But it has triggered that conversation that is being driven by the UDM Women's Organization around the system of parole. Let me take a call from Zig in Randburg. Good morning to you, Zig. You want to talk to me about something completely slightly different. The potential of Helen Zille potentially becoming mayor of Joburg or running for the position of mayor of Joburg?
I'm not sure if she's been cleared by her DA for that yet, but I would welcome that very dearly because Helen Zille was the successful mayor of Cape Town, and I believe she got a world award as the best mayor of the world way back. And yes, and she is an investigative reporter who exposed the brutal murder of Steve Biko so successfully in the Round Daily Mail of yore, and I think we may expect the same kind of exposures from her of the crimes committed by her fellow councillors and predecessors. And good luck to Helen. I wish she came to Joburg.
Zig, do you think she would get elected? And this is not to doubt her credentials, but you and I know that from time to time, she's seen as a divisive figure, particularly when she espouses certain views about race relations, about the past, apartheid and colonialism and things like those, especially through her social media. Do you believe that the critical mass of the Joburg electorate could elect Helen Zille?
She is totally non-racial, and her critics are the racists that are hostile towards her because of their racism and defending the good aspects of colonialism, which made South Africa. Damn it, we owe South Africa that used to be and it has now been destroyed. We owe it to colonialism to a large extent, and she talked the truth, and we must not chuck her out for truth when she can save Joburg.
Wait, Zig. So we should be thankful for colonialism?
No, I'm not saying that. We should be thankful for the products that it gave to South Africa, which have now been destroyed.
That came at what cost?
It came at apartheid was horrible, but it wasn't colonialism that was entirely responsible for apartheid at all. And Helen Zille did not defend that. She exposed the horrors of apartheid at their most brutal peak of Steve Biko.
Yeah, there's no question those credentials. There's no questioning those credentials at all, Zig. But anyway, I've engaged you. Thank you for that. That's Zig in Randburg there, weighing in on the prospect of Helen Zille. Potentially, it's reported that there's consideration that she may want to consider running for the position of mayor of Joburg. We'll see if anything comes through from that. But for now, let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news at 7 a.m.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Free State Education welcomes arrest of officer in Bloemfontein, disappearance probe, and gift of the givers ready to respond to weather emergencies. Good morning. The Department of Education in the Free State has commended the swift response by police following the arrest of a police officer in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old Kamogelo Baukudi. The officer was brought in for questioning after being linked to the vehicle used in the abduction. He was abducted by two unknown men purporting to be police officers in Bloemfontein. Provincial Education spokesperson Howard Ndaba says they welcome progress made in the investigations.
Our prayer and thought goes to the learner and his family in this challenging time. We are appealing to the members of the public, the community, to work together with the police to make sure that we bring the perpetrators of this matter to book.
A 57-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the death of a 51-year-old woman following an alleged domestic assault incident in Umtata, the Eastern Cape. Police spokesperson Welile Matyolo says the woman died in hospital on Friday after sustaining injuries believed to have been inflicted by a partner during an incident at his workplace on the 31st of May. The man initially claimed she had been attacked by unknown suspects, but further investigation and electronic evidence led to his arrest. Matyolo says they are waiting post-mortem results to confirm the exact cause of death.
It is alleged that the deceased from East London visited her boyfriend, who is an employee in the dealership, and they quarreled. The 57-year-old suspect physically assaulted the deceased, took her to hospital the following day, and the victim was admitted, which led to her death on Friday, the 6th of June at about 19 hours.
The Department of Defence has confirmed the passing of retired Lieutenant General Gilbert Ramano yesterday at one military hospital in Pretoria. In a statement, the department describes the Lieutenant General as a revered freedom fighter, military commander and diplomat who served South Africa with honour, distinction and integrity. Ramano is a former chief of the South African Army and played a pivotal role in the integration of former liberation armies into the formation of the new South African National Defence Force in 1994. He was part of laying the foundation for a unified and professional defence force in a democratic South Africa. The department has extended its condolences to his family, friends and comrades. Aid organisation Gift of the Givers is urging homeless people in areas expected to be hardest hit by snow and freezing temperatures to make use of available shelters and to contact them for help if needed. The organisation's project manager, Ali Sablay, says they've been inundated with calls from informal settlements, especially in the Western Cape, where severe weather began on Saturday morning. The South African Weather Service has forecast a cold front moving in from the west, with localised snowfall expected in some areas early in the week. Sablay says their teams are on standby and ready to assist.
We are seeing an increase of many homeless people out in the streets who do not have proper shelter. We do know there have been many shelters open, particularly in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, to accommodate these people out in the streets. We ask people to heed that call and not be out there where they, over the last few years, we are seeing people dying to this inclement weather. Gift of the Givers teams are on standby to assist the disaster risk management teams.
And finally, protests against immigration raids have flared up for a third day in Los Angeles, with demonstrators confronting police and security forces. National Guard units ordered by President Donald Trump have used tear gas and rubber bullets. Cars and tires have been set on fire and dozens of people have been arrested. President Trump described the protesters as violent insurrectionists, mobs. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, deployed the move.
I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
Recapping the top story, the Department of Education in the Free State has commended the swift response by police following the arrest of a police officer in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old Kamogelo Baukudi. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Here's some breaking news you might have missed. Gordon, a 44-year-old man, switched to Outsurance and now saves an unbelievable 2,794 Rand a month on his 2019 Ford Everest 1.2-litre automatic. Outsurance clients always get something out. Get a quote today and see how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. You always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, athletics, South Africa's Tete Dijana and Gelderstein delivering dominant performances at the 2025 Comrades Marathon. And it is the French Open epic. Carlos Alcaraz winning Roland Garros. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. If you're driving from Durban up to Pietermaritzburg, a stationary vehicle to watch out for between Ashburton and Market Road. The left lane is currently obstructed. The N3, if you're on that run from Durban back into Gauteng, N3 is incident-free and weather is clear at this stage. Comrades runners, a lot of them are expected to head back inland today. And we do urge you to keep an eye on the weather forecast and weather developments. At this stage, the N3 is clear, but anything could change. And there is some forecasting around for some pretty adverse weather conditions as well. Gauteng looks all right. No major problems. Cape Town very busy out of Mitchell's Plain. M7, Veldsvreden Road's going north. They're jammed up out of Mitchell's Plain to Philippi. R300 going down towards the M7. That's all choked up and still no traffic lights. Stellenbosch Arterial around Westbank Main. So delays leaving Kales River towards the R300. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, folks. It's the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It is absolutely great to be in your company. You will have noticed here and there, glitches here and there. But I tell you what, no gremlins formed against us shall prosper. This is an appointment we have on a daily basis, our conversation, and our conversation shall proceed. Let me tell you what's coming up in this hour. In the next few minutes, we'll be focusing on those comments that were made by Judge Rata Mokhwatleng in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. He was responding to a request by Advocate Charles Mnisi for him to be excused from proceedings today because he was going to be participating in the Comrades Marathon yesterday and therefore would need today to make the journey back to Gauteng. In responding to that, the judge insinuating that, this is a request that reflects on what he says, South Africa run by blacks, and then going on to say that no white advocate would make this request. So there are nuances to it, and we'll unpack those nuances to those comments with Stanley Malemacha in the next few minutes. He will be commenting in his personal capacity and reflecting on it as someone who studies jurisprudence, the study of jurisprudence. And then immediately after that, we'll talk about a situation that has to do with the avian influenza and the measures that South Africa is taking to sort of protect the country from an outbreak of avian influenza in Brazil. Brazil is one of the big poultry exporting nations, and we import a lot of chicken pieces and various portions from Brazil. And there's now a concern that the measures that government is taking in response to the avian influenza in Brazil may be affecting supply chains as well as affordability for what is a staple protein for many South Africans, especially low-income households in this country. So we'll have that conversation with Thabo Nkabinde from AgriSpace, who is also an animal scientist within this hour. And also through it all, of course, you are a big part of the conversation. Do give me a call, 086 000 2032, and do send those WhatsApp voice notes. I can assure you we've fixed that system and we'll be able to take those. The number for that is 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
12 minutes after 7. All eyes will be on the Senzo Meyiwa trial this morning when it resumes to see if Advocate Charles Mnisi, one of the defense lawyers in that trial, will be in attendance. Mnisi put in an impressive performance in yesterday's Comrades marathon, finishing the 90-kilometer race from Pietermaritzburg to Durban in a time of 10 hours, 42 minutes and 4 seconds. Of course, few of us would have known about his participation in the race in the first place if his request to be excused from court proceedings today to allow him to make the return trip from KZN had not received this response from the presiding judge, Rata Mokgwatleng.
I must go and tell the JP. When the JP asks me, why were you not sitting, or the DJP, why were you not sitting on Monday? No, we're waiting for Advocate Mnisi to come drive back to Joburg, to wherever, because he was running a marathon. This is South Africa, run by blacks. I can tell you now, even if you call me an Uncle Tom, I don't think a white advocate can have the gall to ask me that. Never.
All right, let's welcome Stanley Malimaja, who is an attorney at the Center for Child Law at the University of Pretoria. But he gives this commentary independently and in his personal capacity. Good morning to you, Stan, and thank you for your time. So these comments have been slammed across the board, really. I saw Pabasa out with a statement, the Law Society of South Africa, I saw Judges Matter, and quite a number of other institutions. Your broad thoughts on what the judge said on Thursday?
Good morning, Tulas, and good morning to your listeners. You know, I think this statement is very unfortunate, and it's not a surprise that a number of organizations or institutions have come out, to condemn the words of the judge. But I think, what we need to remember, maybe let me just take it from the words of Steve Biko, that, no race possesses the monopoly of intelligence. Therefore, race shall never be a yardstick of legal professionalism. And also, it's very important that, what meanings we attach to race and how we choose to approach it is obviously a very important, starting point. Therefore, the words of this judge, they should fall in the same speed and pace that they, attempted to torpedo, where we must use, one race as a yardstick or as a barometer of legal professionalism. And it actually, reminds us of the Kev Bell book, where this book actually, the largest finding which was criticized is that, it suggested that black people score on average 15 points below whites when it comes to an IQ test. And unfortunately, intelligence or legal professionalism, or any professionalism to us for that matter, is not inherited. And, the words of this judge, I must say, it is just social Darwinism. They do not exist. And, yes, we might be faced by them, but I think we must remember one of our leaders, Steve Biko, and I will repeat that there's no race that possesses the monopoly of intelligence, no legal professionalism.
So having said what you said, Stan, is it sufficient to deal with these comments just for what they are, and perhaps say the Judicial Service Commission, the Judge President in Gauteng, and others should reflect and see what is possible by way of follow-up with Judge Mokgwatleng? Or is there something systemic to talk about? I've heard one or two people saying that, there's something there. There's a conversation to be had about within some of the problematic elements within the legal profession, some of the privileges that are extended to, professionals of one race and not extended to other professionals.
I think it really shows that there is a very, neglected conversation that needs to be had about the legal profession. And I mean, just by drawing on our history, we would know, Tulas, that, the legal profession is one of those professions where black people were not allowed, to practice and, to come to, after 30 plus years of democracy to hear, a sitting judge, making that comparison that, a white council would not have done this. It is quite worrying. And actually what it reminded me of is that, if one now and then follows the interviews of judges, by the JSC, you'll see that so some of the panel members, they quite straightforward and grilling when it comes to, white interviewees, where they will be asking, white prospective judges about issues of transformation. What do you think about transformation? What do you think about apartheid? Was it, and I think right now what the utterances of these judges actually said is that I think similar questions must be posed, to black prospective judges to say, what do you think about, transformation? What do you think? Because I think, we take it too light that, just because of one skin color, they might seem to appreciate the history of this country. They might seem to appreciate that there are certain things. Yes, judges are human beings. Those might be words that they say in their dining rooms. But, we need to draw the difference between a dining room and, sitting on the bench. This case is one of the Meyiwa case is one of the most important cases, and for the fact that the media is covering this, it speaks broadly also to access to courts and how people are viewing this case. This is not just like any case in the magistrate's court where it might be covered for 1 or 2 days. So I think there is, you are very right, Thulas, there is a greater systemic question that needs to be had about this type of utterances.
Could it be said, Stan, that he was seeking to insist on absolute fidelity to professionalism, given the historical context and the initial difficulties that black professionals had accessing these spaces and being admitted as advocates and practicing law, and the time that it has taken over the decades for us to get to this point that we can't afford to put a foot wrong? And does that still need to be made a point about that? Does the standard need to be different such that the levels of professionalism that the black professional has to adhere to is pegged higher than what a white professional would need to adhere to? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand any logic or reasoning around these comments. I don't know.
Look, Thulas, that's why I'm saying, those utterances, to begin with, they must fall flat on their face. I mean, unless I do not know. I'm a legal professional myself, and I do not know about any rule of court or any directive that says a black counsel must behave in this way and a white counsel must behave in this manner. We are all under the same body. And trust you me, Thulas, the judge's concern or dissatisfaction could have been properly covered without the use or reference of race, or without using one race to be an epitome of what the legal profession should look like. I think, for one, our democracy, Thulas, has allowed us to choose as to where we want to receive our services. The judge, for example, prefers receiving other services, be it medical, be it social, be it, whatever service. If he prefers receiving it from a particular race, for whatever reason, that is well within his rights. But when he sits on the bench, he represents the South African judiciary, and he must be devoid, he must be divorced of his, personal traits. And so I do not think that, just because black people entered the legal profession at a later stage as opposed to their counterpart, it means that, we cannot afford to make any mistakes. Yes, mistakes can be if mistakes are there, Thulas, they need to be corrected, but they can be corrected without a reference of a racial labeling.
Stan, let's leave it there for this morning. That's Stanley Malimaja, who's an attorney at the Center for Child Law, but giving that commentary independently in his personal capacity. I don't know. I was just trying to make sense of what these comments are all about.
We all have an enemy.
Not me.
Oh, please. Trust me, you do. Some are vocal about it. I mean, they don't shy away from it. Open hatred, Well, at least they're honest about it. Then you get our Satan. Oh, they will hate you in the shadows. Consult the Makoya of Baloi. Maybe an Inkabi for you here and there. Trash your name until it can't even be recycled. Tune into My Secret Enemy and get a front row seat to some of the most spine-chilling stories in the Hall of Betrayal. My Secret Enemy, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
23 minutes after 7. On Friday, we highlighted for you the growing concern about foot and mouth disease, the foot and mouth disease outbreak and its impact on the country's beef industry and exports. Well, another situation of concern is playing out in the poultry industry, and it also threatens a disruption of supply chains and prices and price increases. It all has to do with the government's blanket ban on Brazilian poultry imports due to a localized avian influenza outbreak, with Brazil being a key supplier of mechanically deboned meat known as MDM and poultry offals, critical components in low-cost processed meats. The ban has triggered soaring prices, we are told, disrupted production chains and sparked fears of job losses and escalating hunger among vulnerable populations. So let's speak to Thabo Nkabinde, who is Director of Agri-Space and also an animal scientist. Thabo, good morning, and thank you for your time. The impacts I just described in my intro, are they still feared, still a feared worst-case scenario, or are they already starting to materialize?
I think, like always, good morning. How are you?
Very well, Thabo, yes.
I'm all right. There's been an ongoing, obviously, problematic, I would say, challenges, like in our industry, like particularly in the agricultural industry and the poultry specifically. Like they're not only emerging or materializing now. They've always been there. It's just that obviously, like from time to time, obviously, like there will be outbreaks from different parts of the world, but it's something which is an ongoing challenge each and every year, particularly around this time, because obviously if we understand high pathogenic avian influenza, like it's more like flu, so like around this time, obviously, like we will experience like those challenges, and now obviously like as we have seen it with the Brazil. Like outbreaks, and which is also like affecting like our local supplier.
Yeah. So the upshot from the piece that I read that triggered this conversation was an argument that I understood to be saying that the ban on imports from that whole country is a bit of a blunt instrument, and that it takes long for our government to then react and respond when the situation improves and to lift the ban. So is that the case, that the method of responding to the avian influenza outbreak in Brazil is a blunt instrument and there are alternatives that government could be using?
Yeah, like you're correct to say that there are different scientific approach that the government can actually consider, particularly because there's what we call the One Health approach, and what we have seen also is that instead of like just putting a burden on the trade, like from the countries which are extremely like affected, like there should be obviously like a rollout of like this One Health approach in order for us to make sure that like particularly mechanically deboned meat, which like it caters for the poor, it is not affected, and then like we can actually still continue to have a stability and a sustainable supply in the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, just lastly, Thabo, please talk to that element, because part of the concern is those mechanically deboned meats as well as chicken offals. I saw that write-up talking about how the prices of those have increased. Is that what's at stake? The protein that is accessible, especially by lower-income households in this country?
Yeah, because obviously, Brazil is one of the largest poultry exporters globally. It produces for many countries, and it is a dominant player, in South Africa, in supplying the mechanically deboned meat, compared even more than in the top 5 poultry producers in the country. So. This ongoing, obviously, maybe ban, particularly economically, the trade ban will lead to price. It leads to price volatility, where the price increase due to the reduced supply, affects the processors and ultimately the consumers, and the cost push into the inflation as well. And also what also that does is that in the poultry-based products, particularly those aimed at the low-income segments. So that's where the problem is, and that need to lead to the business reliant on stable pricing and consistent supply of poultry raw materials.
All right, Thabo, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. He's Director of Agri-Space and is also an animal scientist.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Yo, Zai. Yandenzani FOMO yesterday. What FOMO did to me yesterday. I will never miss Comrades again for as long as I'm able to run it.
Yep, I know. 90 kilometers running on a Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Some people call it crazy, but we call it the Comrades. And you know what? It was 2 wonderful South Africans who did us so proud. And I have to tell you, double glory for us. South Africa's Teta Dijana and Gerda Steyn delivering dominant performances at the 2025 Comrades Marathon, winning the men's and women's races respectively in a historic down-run showdown. Let's hear from the women's race winner, Gerda Steyn.
There was a lady who was opening up quite a significant gap on how the way I was running or the place I was running. So that to me was a moment where I was really having to concentrate and to make sure that I stick to the plan that I feel is best for me on the day. And I really, really enjoyed how this race played out. There was, in the last 10 kilometers of the race, another lady closed the gap on me. And the second lady was at one point only 2 minutes behind, which is not a lot at all.
On to tennis action, a match destined for the history books. Carlos Alcaraz overcame a 2-set deficit, saves 3 championship points to defeat Yannick Sinner in a marathon 5 hours, 29 minutes final, making it the longest in French Open history. Here's the 22-year-old champion, Carlos Alcaraz.
This one was the most exciting match that I've played so far, without a doubt. Today I think the match had everything. Really good moments, really bad moments. Just really, really happy and proud about how I deal with everything today. It wasn't easy. The first match that I came back from 2 sets to love down. I think it wasn't a better occasion to do it in the final of a Grand Slam.
And in the women's draw, it was Coco Gauff who was crowned champion as she beat Arina Sabalenka. And speaking of champions, the Springbok women's assistant coach Lorian Johannes Haupt is impressed to have witnessed some synergy between the young and senior players, and they promise they'll get even better at the Women's Rugby Africa Cup tournament after their convincing wins over Uganda, and that was in the openings fixture. Speaking to SABC Sport, Johannes Haupt says they have a good chance to defend their championship.
It's really nice that they finally finding themselves playing together as a team. It was our first game against Uganda as a younger group mixed with some experienced players. I thought that was really good for us. So the synergy will get better as the tournament progresses, and we're excited to see what's next.
Next, we'll have sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the MK party in Parliament wants Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. Godongwana tabled the national budget for the third time last month, with the MK party and EFF expressing their disagreement with the increase of the general fuel levy. The Department of Education in the Free State has commended the swift response by police following the arrest of a police officer in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old Kamugelo Baukudi. And the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, a campaign group trying to break Israel's aid blockade of Gaza, say Israeli forces have boarded their ship and all connectivity for the 12 volunteers on board has been cut. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very busy back to work Monday. Here's the headlines. The N12 from Davyton through Benoni and Boxburg down to about Rondebolt Road. Stays slow after an earlier crash. Two sets of roadworks leaving the airport, one by the Benoni exit, the next lot up by the NGen services. You've got quite a lot of traffic to work through leaving the airport en route to Tembisa and Pretoria, and one fairly solid, really, from sort of Soweto right round to Rivonia Road this morning. And the N3 under pressure with a crash at Marlborough Drive, backlogging traffic deep into Germiston, Alberton territory. Also, if you're arriving up from the Vaal, crash on the R59 before Reading Interchange near Michelle Avenue, and that's heavy back through towards Swartkoppies Road and Klip River Drive, if you like. Durban side, a pretty busy Monday as well. There's some traffic between Prospect and, between the Munsum Toti and Prospect, and that looks more heavier than normal on that run off the south coast. And then through the M7 up to Westwood Mall, that's all pretty jammed up into the roadwork. Southbound, a crash at Queen Nundy Drive, so some additional delays there. And traffic light problems coming down Chris Harney Road at Seacow Lake. So if you're driving down through Durban North, that's pretty busy as well. Cape Town this morning, very heavy out of Mitchell's Plain. The M7 stays heavily jammed. Again, it's worse than normal from Morgansteer up through the roadworks at Samora Michelle. There's also some backlogging going into Mitchell's Plain, and a taxi crash on the N7 Jakes Kerville Drive just as you come up into Epping, driving northbound opposite County Fair. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
Yeah, let's say good morning to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, let's start with data out of the United States. Tell me about their hiring figures. You're saying that they've slowed.
Morning, Thulas, and I hope you can hear me now.
100%, loud and clear.
Yay, lovely. The economy over in the U.S., they've added 139,000 jobs in May, and this is compared to the 147,000 jobs added in April. Now, the slowing down in hiring comes as businesses continue to assess the impact of Trump's tariffs on sentiment and operations. The unemployment rate remained steady at 4.2%, while the labor force participation rate edged lower to 62.4% from 62.6%. Average hourly earnings in the meantime rose 0.4% in May and 3.9% on an annual basis, surpassing market forecasts. Now, the healthcare industry added the most jobs, adding 56,000 jobs, followed by leisure and hospitality, contributing 48,000, and social assistance adding 16,000 jobs. Meanwhile, experts have raised concerns about the report. Some analysts caution that the job market is experiencing some strain under the current economic conditions. This report also comes right after the downbeat private sector employment print and jobless claims numbers, all suggesting that the labor market could be heading for trouble. Now, the Fed will be monitoring that market closely, as its double mandate includes ensuring a healthy labor market. And so economists say if the employment market shrinks, we will probably see a more dovish stance from policymakers.
And the progress around the walking away and pulling away from developing trade war between the US and China is a bit stop-start, isn't it? Last week it seemed as if we were regressing, but you are telling us this morning that the trade talks will resume today.
That's right, Thulas, and this comes after a phone conversation between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, which Trump described as a positive conclusion for both countries. So those talks will be continuing today, or rather restarting again today in London. The talks will be led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Trade Representatives Jameson Greer, and they'll meet with Chinese officials led by Vice Premier He Lifeng. Some issues that will be top of mind include the trade disputes, rare earth minerals, export controls, and student visas. The trade war has seen both countries impose tariffs on each other's goods, peaking at 145% earlier this year. The talks, in the meantime, aim to build on a temporary truce agreed upon in Geneva last month, which lowered import taxes on goods traded between the two countries. But both sides have accused each other of breaching the deal since then. So all eyes on those negotiations today for a greater sense of where both the US and China are when it comes to, dealing with each other in their relations.
Where are the talks taking place, darling?
In London.
Oh, you see now, it's London, darling. London. Occasionally, Chief SW in Klapo High School English trumps St. Stephen's. It's London.
Oh, you got me today. You got me.
How are the markets looking at this hour?
So looking at how markets closed last week, the first week of trade for June, green screens in the US, and this despite a slowing job market, sentiment really being boosted by a recovery in Tesla's share price and progress when it comes to talks between Washington and Beijing. With that, the Nasdaq led the gains, closing 1.2% higher. Meanwhile, back at home, stocks were mixed, with the all share flat, losing 0.08%. Despite this, the index still remains at record highs above the 96,000 point mark, really being boosted by platinum and gold prices. The rand also losing some steam, but still below the 17.80 mark to the dollar, sitting at 17.77 this hour. Looking at Asian stocks kicking the week off on a high, traders will be keeping a close eye on those US-China trade talks taking place today.
All right, darling, you may not be in London and in Johannesburg, but you are and always are right on the money. That's Ndauling Lechelade. She'll be back with another update for you just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
A bowl of cereal, a glass of orange juice, some flavored yogurt for breakfast. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front-of-package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me just take one or two of your voice notes and calls as well. Let me take this one that has to do with the comments of Judge Rata Mokgwatling.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. This judge, I think he should be impeached the same way that John Hlophe was impeached. Remember, John Hlophe was just impeached for saying, we trust in you guys. So, this guy, he's done much worse if you ask me. What kind of self-hate is this? This is unbelievable. Anyway, I think the guy should be impeached. It's not worth it to be a judge. His thinking in jail is just...
Yeah. Look, you hear it from him saying, you may call me a quote-unquote Uncle Tom, that even he recognizes he was preempting that that might be the response that says, come on, this is problematic. But also, secondly, the fact that he made similar comments in March last year and then apologized was an admission on his part that these comments are problematic. Otherwise, why would he have apologized? But then we are back where we were in March last year. Peggy in Mpumalanga, good morning.
Thulasizwe, I think you are a common denominator in this discussion because you run Comrades Marathon and you're a lawyer. So preparing Comrades Marathon, it's a mountain to climb. It's not a child's play. I think Advocate Mnisi had to make him aware, and he should be proud of Advocate Mnisi that he's keeping fit, more especially running a Comrades Marathon. And secondly, when we talk legally, I think it was very unfortunate what Judge Gautrain has uttered in the bench. And I believe that he's a very good judge, so to say. And one cannot take away from him the good work that he's doing. But I think he has to work on his behavior, the way he does things, the way he approaches issues. He must know that when you are sitting there, you are not a messiah, but you are simply an adjudicator that has been discharged with being charged with a huge responsibility. Some of us, we are drawing inspiration from some judges, and we want to learn more. But if they behave in such a manner, it leaves much to be desired. And the rest, I think your analyst said it mouthfully, that race should not be used as a barometer to measure the intellectual reasoning capacity of a person.
Because in those comments, you were also implicated, Peggy, as a legal practitioner.
Yes, definitely. In closure, I wanted to say that I think the Legal Practice Council must take action and deal with this matter attentively, because this is totally uncalled for and unbecoming. I thank you to that.
Peggy, thank you for that. That's Peggy in Mpumalanga. Let me go to Linda in Boksburg. Good morning. Also on the same issue. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. Please go ahead.
I'll enter this debate on a different angle. The judge's comments are a true reflection of a fast trial that is being run at the Pretoria High Court. It's a farce. This case is a paid circus, to say the least. Where have you ever heard of a situation where the so-called mastermind, the mind behind the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, if that is true in the first place, who has paid killers and there's a confession admitted by the court, that person has not been arrested, is not being prosecuted at the same time with the so-called killers. Now, it's a farcical thing. I mean, I can go on and on about this, but the reality is that the judge's comments are so bad for the profession that they don't deserve any other thing except that either the Judicial Services Council or the LPC must take action. But they are a reflection of the farcical trial that is being run to really put salt into the wounds of the Meyiwa family.
Linda, thank you for that.
Thank
you. Sadly, Linda, there are quite a number of people that have come to that conclusion, that the answers that the Meyiwa family may be looking for about the killing, the circumstances around the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, are unlikely to come from that trial that's actually playing itself out. I've heard many people saying that trial is unlikely to lead to a satisfactory outcome just because of what has happened, the way that it has been running. And Linda, they're sharing that sentiment that says, don't look to that trial if you're looking for the real answers as to, what happened, the circumstances around the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. Tando in the Eastern Cape, you also want to weigh in on these comments by Judge Gautrain.
It's a fuss indeed. I can't agree more with Linda. I mean, some of the things that should be embargoed by now. I mean, it's a fuss. It's been going on for 100 years, and we're still at it as if it's a new case, as if something that's new is just going to be revealed. And I agree with Becky, too, that he's really unreasonable. Considering that Rata was a soccer player, he should actually be glad that someone asked to take time out to, to run the Comrades. And come to think of it, how many doctors' certificates are brought in by people saying they've been sick and, actually lying? So as far as I'm concerned, the advocate is totally within his right. And guess what? If he is going to make it a race issue, a white advocate would have actually said the same thing, because they want to be seen, they are supposedly, upright and thingy. Actually, for me, it's and also I believe that what the human race. So me and the race issue, I'm not going to go even.
No,
I subscribe to Sobukwe. So, yeah.
Yeah, Thando, thank you for that. And in fact, the point you are making about him saying no white legal practitioner would have the gall to make this request, the Secretary General of PABASA, Advocate Dalimpofu, has made the point that, there are colleagues within the profession who've come out and said, white colleagues who have said, no, man, we've made similar requests to say, I'm taking part in this sport. Could I please be excused on this day? So there's that then, that element as well. Nhlanhla in KZN, good morning. You want to talk about Helen Zille, my brother?
Good morning, brother.
You're right, my brother.
I'm okay.
Please go ahead.
Taking it easy in this country that give us so much pain, my brother. My brother, on the issue of Helen Zille, she must fix Cape Town first.
Mm-hmm.
Cape Town, we're not talking about the idea of pursuing the idea of federalism in this country. Cape Town needs to be fixed all over, all of Cape Town before she could claim that she can fix Joburg. That woman, she's so racist, and she thinks she's a queen in this country. Yeah.
We don't have queens in this country in the sense of royalty, man.
That woman fails. And it's the arrogance of white people. Does that too?
But you can't say of white people. You know better. Of some white people, no?
Yeah. You're right. Yes. My brother, that judge, he must remember that without the same black people, he wasn't going to be the judge.
All right. Nhlanhla, I've got to thank you. Let's leave it there. That's Nhlanhla in KZN there. Let me go to Faisal in the Eastern Cape. Good morning. You want to weigh in on Oscar Pistorius?
Morning, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Fine, Thulas. Thulas, this auntie of UPM is really, I feel this auntie, she wants the conversation, she wants attention, she's an attention seeker. How many in the parliament? There's a minister, he's an ex-convict. There's in Gauteng, there's a person in the council of Johannesburg. People are all over. Also, Pistorius is served. I'm not defending him. He served his time.
Yeah.
So what does the law say? Now look where she goes. She blamed and said the failure of justice system of South Africa. What was the law? She's in parliament, Oscar. Thulas.
Yeah.
She should, if there's an issue, put in parliament. Let us change this law.
Yeah.
I see in South Africa every week, everybody's banging the justice system, which the system is working very good. They have problems.
Yeah.
And the lawyers are very, very intelligent. Also, they defend their clients. If the person wins the case, South Africa becomes a very big hullabaloo, because people are looking for hype,
Yeah.
So I'm saying that I feel really, it's shocking. It is really shocking for this Andy. First time I hear her name, what's she talking about? There are people to us. They are coming down once. They go to the churches. They've been released. They are released. The parole. What's the law of the parole? You can't keep a person in the jail forever.
All right.
I think this Andy, she's an attention seeker. She's really looking for attention.
Thank you for that, Faisal. That's Faisal in the Eastern Cape. In fact, let me just read a message from one of the listeners. It's quite extensive, so I'll summarize. I won't read all of it. This person says, apropos Oscar Pistorius, here's why I believe that parolee Oscar Pistorius should be allowed to reintegrate. All the hullabaloo is time wasting. We have far serious issues. In South Africa, the rights of parolees are governed by the Correctional Services Act 111 of 1998 and the Constitution of the Republic 1996. Some of the key rights include: 1, the right to dignity. Parolees are entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. 2, right to conditions. Parolees have the right to know the conditions of their parole. 3, right to support. Parolees may be entitled to support services such as counseling and job training. And 4thly, right to appeal. Parolees have the right to appeal decisions related to their parole. So that talking to Oscar Pistorius is but a parolee like any other parolee, according to that person who sent that message.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. Hopefully it's warm where you are. There's a big chill across the country. We're certainly feeling it down in Cape Town, I can tell you that as well. Joburg roads this morning, N3 under pressure from Elands Interchange all the way through to Marlborough Drive up in Limbro Park. It's a real pressure cook at that N3 this morning. There's been a crash at Linksfield, a breakdown at Modderfontein, a crash up at Marlborough Drive, so it's all very heavy. Also the R21 worth noting, 2 queues to work through this morning, leaving the airport on way to Pretoria. Those never-ending roadworks still there, queuing up into the Benoni exit, queuing up towards the NGen service as well. N1's fairly busy coming out of Soweto. There's just a lot of pressure, really. It's a broken down vehicle near Gordon Road, and that plus the other queue into Deepcliff means really from sort of Eldos through Soweto into Rudaport, there's a lot of traffic on that run through. Durban's having a pretty busy Monday morning as well. Masabalali Yangwa remaining closed between the stadium and Sanduli Tusi. That's to clear up yesterday's finish line infrastructure from Comrades, so it'll just be slow getting around there. The road likely to be closed all day. Roadworks on the Victoria Embankment still there, causing delays turning off the Southern Freeway, and the M13 Hillcrest down Fields Hill via Kloof into Pinetown, quite busy as well. Cape Town N2 inbound, not unusual for a Monday, queuing up from Gordons Bay through to Somerset West, queues as far as the Victoria Street traffic lights. Marine Drive's heavy out of Tableview down towards Racecourse Road, and a lot of pressure not only out of Mitchell's Plain but into Mitchell's Plain. The M7 Jake Scoville standing both ways into the roadworks at Samora Michelle. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favourite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's focus on education for a moment. In a recent thought-provoking opinion piece, veteran academic Mary Metcalf raises sharply the interlinkages between inequality of resources and poor outcomes in relation to literacy and reading proficiency among the country's children. Metcalf recalls that the country's ability to fulfill its constitutional promise of equity and human potential hinges on a single foundational skill, the ability to read for meaning, saying that literacy is not merely an educational goal, but a cornerstone of democracy, social justice, and future opportunity. She joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you, Mary, and thank you for your time, Prof. You base your arguments in the piece on the recent outcomes of the South African Systemic Evaluation SACE. Take it from there and tell us what that SASE outcome tells us about literacy, levels of reading proficiency in our country, and how this link to inequality of resources.
Thank you, Thulasizwe. The South African Systemic Evaluation is a new sample-based assessment that's been developed by the DBE. And to put it simply, what it shows us, amongst many other things, is two things. That 80% of children in grade 3 do not have the required skills for reading as required in grade 3. They also show that this inability to master reading is closely associated with socioeconomic realities. Poorer children do not have the same access to learning reading. Now, this is not new. We know from many international measures, we know from the previous ANAs, we know from regional measures like SACMEC, that we have to improve reading in order for children to make that transition to grade 4, where so much of the curriculum is actually learnt through interaction with text in textbooks. And we also know that we have to have a focused approach to make sure that children in the poorest areas, the poorest homes, have adequate access to reading material at school and at home, and that their teachers are better supported.
What's behind the inequity in terms of access to learning to read for meaning at those foundational levels? Is it a matter of no resources being there in terms of the reading materials, or is it a teaching issue, infrastructure issue? What is it?
I would say it's firstly a material issue, because you and I take for granted that reading is part of our life. We pick up things, we read them easily. But for children who do not have reading material at home and in community, the opportunities to read at school are in lessons in class, and they need to be able to realize that reading is something that one does for joy, for pleasure, that it's fun, that these pages that flick over are negotiable in terms of making meaning of what's in that text. And it's that quest for meaning that will drive the child to learn more. Now, if children don't have books at home and they don't have enough books at school, and they're not taking books home from school to read, they are not having the opportunities to acquire the skills of meaning-making through text. Teachers, I think, well, you know this, that I always say, is that we do not give enough support to our remarkable teachers. Teachers in large classes, many classes in excess of 40 or 50 or 60 in foundation phase, and who do not also have reading material to share with the children, are battling against enormous odds. And the solution is actually much more careful evaluation of what we're doing and much more careful planning.
Yeah.
It's not
in fact, Prof,
statements.
Sorry, Prof, just to come in before we run out of time. In fact, make that point that you make about needing to make foundational literacy a non-negotiable national priority. What would that look like?
Making it a non-negotiable national priority would be to have a much more sober assessment of how we are supporting learners with reading, what material is available, what support we're giving teachers. The national focus on the National Senior Certificate is important, but what it drives is the attention of education departments to grades 10, 11, and 12. What in fact we should be doing is driving national attention to the conditions under which learners are learning in grades 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and to address the huge inequalities which then have a profound impact on how learners progress in schooling. If you can't read by grade 4 and 5, you are going to fall further and further behind. And it's the poorest, and those are the children that in terms of our constitutional commitments, we owe to provide that attention. Thanks.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Mary Metcalf, who is a professor of practice at the University of Johannesburg's School of Public Management, Governance and Public Policy. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, MK Party tables motion to reprimand the finance minister and farmers urged to remain alert following foot and mouth disease outbreaks. Good morning. The MK Party in Parliament wants Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. Godongwana tabled the national budget for the third time last month, with the MK Party and EFF expressing their disagreement with the increase of the general fuel levy. MK Party MP Mzwanele Mani says he has tabled a motion in the National Assembly for a debate in censuring the tabling of the budget.
These events constitute a failure of leadership, a violation of constitutional principles, and a breach of public confidence. Finally, the House should resolve to censure the Minister of Finance, Minister Godongwana, for his mishandling of the budget process, and we call on this House to affirm its commitment to transparent oversight that is pro-poor and to end this unaccountable executive rule.
Meanwhile, Parliament is this week expected to be considering the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals. The Department of Education in the Free State has commended the swift response by police following the arrest of a police officer in connection with the disappearance of 19-year-old Kamogela Baukudi. The officer was brought in for questioning after being linked to the vehicle used in the abduction. He was abducted by two unknown men purporting to be police officers in Bloemfontein. Provincial Education spokesperson Howard Ndaba says they welcome progress made in the investigations.
Our prayer and thought goes to the learner and his family in this challenging time. We are appealing to the members of the public, the community, to work together with the police to make sure that we bring the perpetrators of this matter to book.
The South African Scholar Transporters Association has pleaded with the KwaZulu-Natal Transport Department to intervene in the extortion and victimization incidents scholar transport associations are facing. The association revealed that there's a letter purportedly from Kwadukuza Stanger Taxi Owners Association demanding each vehicle in operation must pay a permit fee of 3,000 Rand. The General Secretary Sihle Magubane says to avoid conflicts between scholar transport and the taxi industry, government must regulate the scholar transport associations differently from the taxi associations.
What we want from government, we want him to regulate us. We want him to allow us to do our own thing, as these are two different sectors. Scholar transport is the other sector, and taxi business is another sector. So we want him to regulate us so that we can look after our own problems.
A 57-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the death of a 51-year-old woman following an alleged domestic assault incident in Umtata in the Eastern Cape. Police spokesperson Welile Matyolo says the woman died in hospital on Friday after sustaining injuries believed to have been inflicted by a partner during an incident at his workplace on the 31st of May. The man initially claimed she had been attacked by unknown suspects, but further investigation and electronic evidence led to his arrest. Matyolo says they are awaiting post-mortem results to confirm the exact cause of death.
It is alleged that the deceased from East London visited her boyfriend, who is an employee in the dealership, and they quarreled. The 57-year-old suspect physically assaulted the deceased, took her to hospital the following day, and the victim was admitted, which led to her death on Friday, the 6th of June at about 19 hours.
The Western Cape Department of Agriculture has urged livestock farmers in the province to be alert and cautious following new outbreaks of foot and mouth disease reported in KwaZulu-Natal, which has also spread to Mpumalanga and Gauteng via auctions. Departmental spokesperson Mary James says farmers are advised to only purchase animals from trusted sources and, where possible, avoid acquiring livestock from provinces where outbreaks have occurred.
Infected animals can spread the virus before they show signs, so it's important to buy livestock with a known health status and to keep new animals separate for 28 days so they can be observed for signs of disease. If you suspect an FMD infection, please immediately report it to your local state vet office. Contact details are available at elsenburg.com on the Veterinary Services Program page.
And finally, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, a campaign group trying to break Israel's aid blockade of Gaza, say Israeli forces have boarded their ship and all connectivity for the 12 volunteers on board has been cut. Israel's foreign ministry said the ship was now being towed to Israel without anybody being injured. The crew on board the Madeleine include climate activist Greta Thunberg and the French-Palestinian Euro MP Rima Hassan. Recapping the top story, the MK party in Parliament wants Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it is, well, the cricket and the Proteas, their opener in Markram feeling good ahead of South Africa's showdown with Australia in the World Test Championship final. And we also have rugby, the Bulls beating the Sharks, and they'll head to face Ireland's Leinster in the URC. Details just before 8:30.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Breaking news just in. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, slashed 870 Rand a month off her car insurance premium. That's right. Pinky switched to Outsurance and now saves a mind-blowing 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Outsurance clients always get something out. Get a quote today and see how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. If you're driving from Durban up to Pietermaritzburg, a stationary vehicle to watch out for between Ashburton and Market Road. The left lane is currently obstructed. The N3, if you're on that run from Durban back into Gauteng, N3 is incident-free and weather is clear at this stage. Comrades runners, a lot of them are expected to head back inland today. And we do urge you to keep an eye on the weather forecast and weather developments. At this stage, the N3 is clear, but anything could change. And there is some forecasting around for some pretty adverse weather conditions as well. Gauteng looks all right. There major problems. Cape Town very busy out of Mitchell's Plain. M7 Veldsfreden Road's going north. They're jammed up. The Mitchell's Plain to Philippi R300 going down towards the M7. That's all choked up and still no traffic lights. Stellenbosch Arterial around Westbank Main. So delays leading Kales River towards the R300. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 10 minutes after 8 on this Monday. It is absolutely great to be in your company today. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. Just reflecting on one or two of your messages that are coming in, and it's one of those privileges that I have, that I can tap into your knowledge of situations as and when we discuss them, your lived experiences, as well as some of your expertise. You'd be amazed at some of the messages that we do get. So let me read one or two of those. Someone says the libraries in communities as well as those in schools are outdated. Some libraries and schools are non-existent, and that is from Terence. They're weighing in on that conversation. We finished off with Professor Mary Metcalf regarding the issue of literacy in the foundational phases of education. And then I have one from Vusi Lushaba in Durban who says the JSC, the Judicial Service Commission, has been served an opportunity on a silver platter to prove to South Africans that the sanctions against Dr. Mandlakayi Sehlope, who said far less than this judge, were not politically motivated. And then goes on to say, as a person who speaks isiZulu as a first language, I still cannot fathom how the words Sesitembele Gunina led to Dr. Hlope's impeachment. But be that as it may, the JSC must go through all the processes it went through for Dr. Hlope and subsequently motivate for this judge to be impeached. That's in reference to the comments made by Judge Rata Mokhwatleng in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. And finally, let me just bring in this one, and it says, thank you for the insightful discussion with Thabo. Given the current challenges posed by avian influenza, the Brazil import ban, the 2023 avian influenza outbreaks, and the fact that the AI vaccine, avian influenza vaccine, is not yet approved in South Africa, should we not consider local solutions, empowering local farmers to increase production capacity and encouraging South African scientists to develop a locally made avian influenza vaccine could strengthen national resilience and reduce dependence on imports? And that is from Dr. Kia Ngube. So, and on it goes with your insightful comments. Do give me a call. I'll take a few of your calls in the next few minutes. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Monday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's start with Galen in Mpumalanga. Good morning to you, Galen. You want to weigh in on the issues around reading and literacy and the role of libraries? Yes.
Good morning. It's Mr. Simelane here. I'm a retired teacher, and I spent the last 10 years of my teaching career in a township school in rural Mpumalanga. And it's a very complicated problem. I come from a reading background, and it was very difficult for me to understand that there are no books in people's houses. Firstly, what Mary says is correct. The social issues are huge. Also, a love of reading is learnt on the knee of a parent. Parents read to their children when they go to sleep. They read in the afternoon. So this is not happening because we know we have huge social issues. So the love of reading is not there. And unfortunately, tablets, phones, devices have taken the place of books. So how do you fix it? Also, we had a library in our township, a municipal library, but the children were regularly chased out of there.
Sure.
And I went there to chat to them, and they said the kids make noise, they break the book. So I said, no, you can't. You've got to allow them in. the ladies there were not interested. So, yeah, I think we're too far gone. Honestly, I don't know if this is fixable. I don't know if it's fixable. In grade 5, which is what I was teaching, I wasn't teaching English. I was teaching social sciences. We had children, like up to 75% of the class, who had no reading for understanding, nothing.
Sure. So,
I don't know.
So it's your lived experience, Gail, and the whole issue around the literacy and the ability to read proficiently and read for meaning is a gateway to understanding other content subjects, and therefore may in the long run actually have consequences for access to further education and opportunities in life.
Yeah, reading is everything. I would love to carry on and make a difference with this still, even though I'm retired. But I don't even know how to start. Because the problem starts in the first 3 years, even before school. I think before school, and the inequalities are a big problem. My own children were reading before they went to school because of me. So where do we fix this problem? Because I just don't know. I don't know. We have parentless children. We have children living with grannies who can't even read and write. How do we fix this problem?
All right. Galen, can I ask you to hold on and ask the team to just take your details, and perhaps you and I can have a conversation further, because I'm getting quite interesting insights from all of this. That, as someone who observes people getting into these initiatives, civil society-led, voluntary initiatives that are promoting literacy, you sort of feel like there's enough activity on the go to sort of, while not fixing the problem, but perhaps making a big dent into it. But it seems to me now, from these conversations this morning, that actually the dent being made could be bigger. There's room to actually get involved and do a lot more around literacy. You can always do more. So I'll be taking up that conversation with Galen off air. Mfundo in Cape Town, good morning. You want to reflect on the judge's comments?
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. Firstly, let me congratulate the Comrades marathon runners yesterday. That all those that made to the line, those that didn't make it, there's always next year. Let's prepare better. Let's recover and let's focus. I wanted to ask, what determines a statement that can be declared that it's racist? Because for me, what the judge said, I feel that if it was a person of a different color, we could have been saying the judge was racist. Yeah. But because it is of our color, then we are declaring a different statement in saying that it was irrational. It was I feel that the judge was very racist against Judge Mnisi. And yes, your guest there who said that it's a kind of a measure of intellectualism, or in terms of professionalism, then you got to be of different color. Now it now boggles mind that if then we go back in assessing the judges or the judgment that he has posed in his sittings, were they rational? Were they fair?
Hey, Mfundo, you open another door now.
were they? No, I'm asking. Were they? If then if his eyesight is telling him that if you are of this color, you are capable of doing this. If you are of this color, then were his judgment based to the book?
Interesting.
I'm not a law by profession,
gotcha.
But then, can someone tell me?
Yeah, I hear you. Mfundo, that's Mfundo in Cape Town. By the way, Mfundo, someone has already called it racist, called the comments racist. Pabasa is quite clear. And I think judges matter. I think they said borders on racism. So you already have that being said out and out. JJ in Polokwane, good morning. You also want to weigh in on the same topic?
Thulasizwe, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I want to weigh in
and
from the different angle.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You see, we tend to choose what we want to hear and what we want to analyze. The judge started by indicating the whole range of the feeling of the society.
Yes. about
this
the
group
delays.
saying this group saying this, including the Meyiwa family, the pain that they're going through. He has done that. And in that, he indicated that given this situation, the feeling out there is that the black, in fact, this includes the government, that the black society, the black professionals, when they do things, they do them like this. You see, and he went on when he brought in the issue of the white judge not doing it. He even used the word goal, should have a goal. What it means, that person can even not have a courage to come and tell me this, not because he is white, but because his orientation, and that goes back to education that we have received.
But
so the
JJ, let me challenge you before I run out of time. Let me challenge you, JJ. Was it not possible for him to express his displeasure at the request being made by Advocate Mnisi and say, I will not grant it because it will lead to delays, and already this trial has been delayed and people are saying justice delayed, justice denied, and stop at that before saying, is this this is South Africa run by blacks? What's South Africa run by blacks got to do with a specific instance?
He shouldn't have, because he started by indicating the feeling of the society which is calling for proper justice every day. You see, so he started there and indicated all the feelings of the society. And when he speaks about the issue of the black and white, it's because the other group is not on the same orientation of the other. Not because he wants it or he sees it that way.
JJ, I've
it's
got to
because the education that we have received is like that.
JJ, thank you for
and
that.
And I wish he should mention it again.
All right, JJ, I've got to go. Thank you for that. That's JJ in Polokwane. By the way, as I said earlier on, the Pabasa sharing experiences where white legal practitioners say, actually, we do make these requests to judges, so we don't know what this judge is talking about. But secondly, the other thing that some legal professionals are pointing out is that lost in that conversation is that Judge Mokgwatleng then asked the other legal practitioners in the room, who so happened to be black, all of them, who actually were able to give a proper account of their understandings of the law, demonstrating that level of professionalism, the very same level of professionalism that he was complaining about. But they were all lumped in now in that situation with his comments. That has been the critique of what the judge had to say.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You know, ever since I adopted positive energy-saving behaviors, the National Grid is thanking me. You should also adopt this lifestyle and your pocket will thank you too. Simply switch off non-essential appliances and lights when they're not in use. Reduce your geyser temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. Replace inefficient lights with LED lights. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to help sustain our energy grid and contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's turn to this now. Last week was Child Protection Week and the protection of children under the spotlight. And there's a reading that says the country is facing a profound child protection crisis where vulnerable children are being failed by the very systems meant to safeguard their rights. The tragic case of 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith kidnapped, trafficked and betrayed by her own mother, we're told, serves as a chilling indictment on how widespread institutional neglect, corruption and dysfunction have created fertile ground for trafficking and exploitation. Let's speak to Professor Mary de Haas, who is a violence monitor in KZN, also an honorary research fellow at the University of KwaZulu-Natal's School of Law. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So we talk about a child protection crisis. Broadly, in broad brush strokes, how does that manifest itself?
Good morning, everybody. Look, I need to also make this clear. I'm also a very experienced social worker, although I don't do much nowadays. I switched to anthropology, which is postgrad. But I spent years working part-time on family issues, mainly even as principal of a children's home. So I need to say this so people think I'm not having a dig at the social work profession, because I've also been associated with NPOs for years. Okay. Now, the first people, there are two, obviously it's a crime and the police are not doing what they should do. You know, if they had a proper intelligence system functioning in different communities, then they would pick up where the traffickers are. That's the way that crime intelligence is supposed to work. That's the start of your prevention of crime, and then that leads to action, more detectives, better trained detectives. Okay. That's one thing. The other thing is the courts, and in that article I wrote for The Independent, I have given a case study of where the family court, the Hawks, the Child Protection Unit, failed a child who was illegally removed from the grandmother's care and almost certainly ended up trafficking, despite every intervention I made, because I knew the Child Care Act, I knew what needed to be done. So they're being failed right across the board. And then you read the other reports about children dying of malnutrition. I mean, in South Africa, where we have enough food. I mean, this is outrageous.
So where do we begin in addressing it?
Well, we begin by a whole lot of things. Now, look, take, for example, healthcare for children. If we had, I pointed out in that article that there's two things: families, health. I mean, there was the apartheid colonialism and apartheid ruined a lot of black family life with migrancy, influx control. And the apartheid government itself produced a document in the late 80s on family policy about rebuilding family life. Now, when we talk families, we're not gender specific. We're not saying it has to be nuclear or extended. We need a group of caring adults, a couple at least of caring adults to care for children. That family policy was never implemented. So too many children are not getting the care. Too many girls are having babies just to get the child care grant, and then neglecting the children, disappearing off somewhere else, leaving them with granny who has to sort it out on a pension. I'm told that even new schools haven't been built in the Eastern Cape, and there's not enough schools for kids. I mean, it's right across the board. We have this controversy over a national health plan. It's a complete waste of time until you start primary health care. Because there are communities in KZN where parents have to send their children away because of respiratory illnesses from coal mining. No clean water. We start with water and clean environment if we want health. And again, this government did not implement a progressive health care primary health.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning because of time. That's Mary de Haas, who is a violence monitor in KZN, weighing in there. Quite extensive systemic issues that she's talking to that do need addressing.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. We'll start with cricket. Proteas opener Aiden Markram says he's feeling good ahead of South Africa's showdown with Australia in the World Test Championship final starting Wednesday at Lord's. Here's Markram.
Yeah, a lot of our series have been like two-game series, so in order to win that series you can't start slow. So suppose there's a little bit of that's helped us along the way, but we know the importance of starting well, trying to get ahead of the game early, and how important each session is going to be. So there's no second dip at it, so we're going to have to make sure we hit the ground running and are nice and sharp come day one.
Now soccer, Banyana striker Hilda Magaya confirming that her recovery is slowly taking shape and hopes to be fully fit when the Women's Africa Cup of Nations resumes in July.
My recovery is coming right so far. I had a few tests done and there's a lot of improvement compared to the first time I got to SA. So yeah, it's promising. And I hope that I will be 100% okay by the time AFCON starts. I know it's going to be a long process, but I'm hoping that I'll be okay by that time.
Now elsewhere, Brazil's forward Neymar has been sidelined after testing positive for COVID-19. The 33-year-old began showing symptoms on Thursday and was immediately removed from the team activities. And finally, Marc Marquez produced another superb ride to take victory at the Grand Prix of Aragon in Spain, round 8 of the 2025 MotoGP season. The Spanish Ducati Lenovo team rider finished ahead of younger brother Alex. In third, Marquez was 1-2 of the season, stretching his lead over his sibling in the points standings. Marc Marquez's teammate Francesco Bagnaia took third place. South Africa's Brad Binder, he hovered in top 5 with a close view of a podium finish until he crashed out, and that was in lap 12. And that's it. We'll go full throttle. That's at 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Forum for South Africa's urged the NPA to drop charges against 5 Walter Sisulu University students accused of arson and public violence. The group warns that prosecuting the students could ruin their future with criminal records. The MK party in Parliament wants Finance Minister Ino Godongwana to be censured over the alleged mishandling of the budget process for 2025-2026. And Eastern Cape authorities are urging motorists to exercise extreme caution as snowfall has been reported on the Wapatsberg Pass along the R61 between Nguba and Graafreinet. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yes, a very good morning. Eastern Cape High Grounds to cross into KZN. Make sure you're checking not only the traffic, but importantly the weather over the next 48 hours. Plenty of warnings issued by the South African Weather Service for chilly conditions leading to snow and ice on the roads as well. Make sure you're fully aware of what you're driving into. Joburg this morning, pretty heavy on the N3 going north from Germiston up to Buccleuch. The N3 south has a crash before Linksfield, so delays there. N12 and R24 routes in from Ekurhuleni badly backed up into Galulis. That's primarily due to the big backlog on the N3 going north through the interchange. And 2 sets of roadworks leaving the airport en route to Pretoria. The first lot with a heavy queue into the Benoni exit. The second lot shortly thereafter as you queue up towards the NGen services area. Durban today, a crash N3 into town at Spaghetti Junction. Traffic parking all the way back to Paradise Valley to the M13 join. So that's heavy. Northbound from the M7 up towards Westwood Mall is pretty tight. A crash on the M4 going inbound near Brook Street, top end of the Southern Freeway earlier. That's a delay. And also just complicating matters for Southern Freeway traffic. There's roadworks as you turn off the Esplanade. 1 lane open going into the CBD. So that's also having a big impact on that M4 Southern Freeway. Cape Town staying really busy at Mitchell's Plain on the M7. Normally it would have eased up by now, but there's no traffic lights this morning right in the middle of those roadworks. Jake Hervell at Oliver Tambo at Samora Michelle. So it's very heavily backed up, leaving that side of Mitchell's Plain. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, tell me about Mr. Price and their plans to open 200 stores. That's expansion.
That's right, Sulas. They're really pegging further growth and market share growth on its store expansion plans. In FY25, Mr. Price opened 184 new stores, taking the total store count to 3,030. And for FY26, Mr. Price has allocated 1.6 billion rand for capital expenditure. That's almost double what was spent on capex in the previous period. That 1.6 billion rand will be used to roll out 200 new stores. The group says its healthy balance sheet and increased capex spend was on the back of an upbeat annual performance where it achieved record operating profit levels with a total revenue increase of 7.9% to 40.9 billion rand and exceeding the 40 billion rand mark for the first time. Mr. Price's retail sales rose 7.8%, driven by a 3.4% increase in comparable store sales and a 7.9% growth in online sales. The group says it saw a lot of shopping within its stores in the second half of its financial year. That, of course, encompasses both the Black Friday period as well as the festive season. The performance was accompanied by a 10.1% growth in earnings, markets welcoming the numbers, with the share price gaining 1.3% in Friday's session.
And then sticking with the retail sector, especially clothing retail, tell me about TFG's online offering, Bash. You're saying that they've become profitable ahead of schedule.
That's right, Thulas. They had pegged a break-even point for 2027, but with the results that came out on Friday, the group reported that the group is now profitable, or rather the unit is now profitable. Online sales now account for 12% of TFG's total sales, and the group says purchases through Bash spurred the growth in online sales. The app has about 1.2 million active users who generated over 420 million shopping sessions across web and the app. Company CEO Anthony Thurnstorm says Bash's success is due to its data-driven approach and tight operational execution, where it's leveraging insights from its reward program and maintaining a disciplined cost base. He says the platform's influence extends beyond direct online transactions, with many customers researching products on the app and visiting stores to buy. And this, he says, also bodes well for the physical stores, drawing in more foot traffic. Now, looking at the overall performance, TFG Africa came out tops, delivering a 7% jump in sales. TFG UK, in the meantime, was boosted by its recent acquisition of White Stuff. The group, however, struggled in Australia, pointing to tough economic conditions. It managed to shrug off that poor showing from down under, with earnings coming in 4.6% higher.
All right, lastly, Ndauling, what will we be looking out for in the markets as they open for trade on this Monday?
The local markets likely to start the day in the green, Thulas, recovering from last week's close. In terms of company news, there's results from Alex Forbes, Omnia, Oceana, and PPC. So lots to digest today. Over in the currency scene, the rand charging ahead, strengthening from 1777 to 1774 to the dollar this hour. And then over in the US, futures are in the red, and this despite today's scheduled trade talks between Washington and Beijing. Lastly, in Asia, stocks are on track to end the day in positive territory. The Hong Kong Hang Seng leading the gains on that front, up 1.2%. Investors there remaining optimistic about the negotiations that are about to take place between the world's two largest economies.
Ndauling, thank you as always. That's how Ndauling Lechela. She's kept you updated on the economy, business and the markets throughout the last 2.5 hours of the show.
Bigger office, more staff, a new location? Growth takes investment, and a business term loan from Standard Bank gives you the capital you need to expand on your terms. With competitive interest rates, fixed monthly repayments, and a dedicated support team, you can plan ahead with confidence. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank business term loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Bafana are preparing for the World Cup qualifiers with 2 international friendlies against Tanzania on Friday, 6 June, and Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June 2025 in Polokwane. Both matches will be at the new Pitamukaba Stadium at 7:30 p.m. The tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 60 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for children under 12, and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana Bafana on X.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
20 minutes to 9. Let's focus on transportation, especially in Gauteng. Yesterday marked a significant milestone for the country's first and until now only rapid rail transit system, the Gautrain. The Gautrain has now been in operation for 15 years since the first train left Sandton for OR Tambo station amidst the fervour of the FIFA World Cup, which was then mere days away from kickoff in this country. Authorities cite the completion of 200 million passenger trips, the system's efficiency, safety and convenience, as well as its employment of more than 1,200 employees as markers of its success. Yet, concerns about its inclusivity and accessibility by working class commuters remain a talking point. So let's speak to the Gautrain Management Agency's CEO, Tsepo Khobe, who joins me now to take that conversation forward. So congratulations, 15 years you've made it, but when you look back and you honestly assess the system's performance and achievements of its goals, do you believe that it is punching at the right level where you thought it would be by the year 2025?
Thank you for having me today, and thank you for asking that question. We believe so. We believe that we are actually on the right track, and we believe that after 15 years, everything that we had intended to do. Remember when we look back at what they call it, the Gautrain was part of the Blue IQ project, and the Blue IQ projects were always intended as being able to spur on economic growth and also develop the economic growth that will then allow the province not to be halted by traffic. Economic growth in itself is linked highly to transport, and it was also about us creating jobs, and those jobs have been created, and you cited it in order in what we had put down as being the markers of success. We believe so that we've achieved what we had sought to do. Yes, the issue of inclusivity remains very key to how we move forward in the next 15 years. But we're not waiting until the current contract has expired. The current contract was designed to be able to attract a particular type of commuter, but we are saying immediately right now, we are going to give 50% discount to people, of what they call it, from a particular LSM. Anybody who earns less than 350,000 rand a year. In addition to that, we're giving you the students what do they call it, a much needed relief over there and above the 25% that we had given them. We're giving them an additional 25% and making it 50%. We're now bringing on a new product for scholars. Previously, we had marketed at the university students, and it was just purely because of us managing the data. Now that we have clear data from the Department of Education, we can now extend it to scholars and senior citizens.
So you allude to the current contract nearing its completion. Is this an allusion to the concessioning arrangement that was there in the initial first few years? Am I correct in that? And why is that important for you in terms of addressing this long-standing concern about inclusivity and accessibility by certain segments of the population?
It is important because we cannot sidestep the fact that we have a contract, and that contract was designed in a particular manner to be able to bring in a particular level of revenue, and that level of revenue in itself is what prompted the need to be able to peg the prices where they are. So in its technical sense, you then say, well, this is the required revenue for you to be able to make sure that the system is what they call it, is maintained. The system is we have renewals on it. We replace any old parts, and the concessionaire makes some level of profit because there isn't anybody who's in business for the sake of just being in business. So, and in essence, what that does, it then allowed us to be able to say the prices will be set at this at this level. Now, on the basis of user pay principle. Now, but we also recognize that transport is a social service, and with it being a social service, you cannot exclude a wider range of what the of society from a service just purely because you are applying the user pay principle.
So what you're saying, though, Tsepo, begs the question, will we be able to maintain the system at the levels at which it's operating, the efficiencies, the maintenance that needs to be done to its infrastructure and rolling stock and the likes post the concession period, with the tweaks that are going to be done with, I don't know, I don't want to say you won't focus on revenue, but you will obviously, but perhaps it won't be the main and perhaps sole driving point in terms of how you operate. I don't know if you get my question. Will we be able to maintain it in light of maybe an acceptance that there's more to it than just revenue?
No, brilliant. And I think this becomes important. And when we're the vehicle, I think one of the things that, as I was speaking earlier, I forgot to add to this is remember there were loans that were put up to be able to build the system and to be able to acquire the asset. Now that we've acquired the asset, then we now own it.
I see.
And we own it in full. So there isn't a cent left to be paid, both from government and also from from the private sector. The Gautrain is a 45 billion rand asset that we now own. It allows us to be able to adjust some of that money that was baked in there to pay the loans back. And it's the loan portion that we're removing. We're not removing the efficiency, we're not removing the maintenance, we're not removing the asset care and the asset integrity management that we had put into the system. None of that changes. It's what changes now is that we're removing the loans and a lot of the risk that was baked into the original logic of how much the system will cost and whether it will be successful or not successful.
Makes sense, Tsepo. So lastly, address the issue of passenger numbers. I see the figure you are citing at this point of the 15-year mark is the 200 million passenger trips that are counted. But I do recall that not so long ago, a few months ago, in fact, the MEC in Gauteng for Finance was quoted as having cited passenger numbers. So I don't know if those are two separate concepts. Passenger trips, 200 million, but passenger numbers, the suggestion was that there you are falling below what you had targeted because your target, the way I understand it, was meant to be 47 million passengers by 2025, but actually in reality you ended up somewhere in the region of just under 8 million passengers in the last financial year.
Thank you for the question again. The whole point about that and what was the reason, and this question we will forever be answering it, and we will look at the next speech and see how we write it properly. The MEC, what he was trying to explain is that we will remain a responsible public partner in the sense that even when systems are struggling a little bit, we will make sure that we honor our our commitments, the contracts that we've signed, and that's what he was trying to say. But the whole issue of passenger numbers, before COVID, our numbers were sitting at 55,000 passengers a day on on the system. Now we're sitting at at around 35,000 passenger trips on the system, and it's multiple areas. The work from home phenomenon, the change in in the type of demographic that uses our system as a whole, and this part of this inclusivity and bringing on lower prices is us realizing that the people that we were targeting originally, which are the upper middle class type person, is now able to work from home, and that's the general person that is able to work from home. The person that is on the system at this point in time, it is the young professional who actually has to commute into the office because they cannot work unsupervised, and therefore we're recognizing that there's a change in demographic and the type of person who uses the system. We've seen a big change, and I think we've moved by more than 5,000 passenger trips since the change of of pricing and a lot of other things.
Gotcha. All right, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Tsepo Khobe, who is the Gautrain Management Agency CEO.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A reminder, if you're leaving the airport, Tambo, on your way towards Pretoria, there are two works zones this morning. These are the sort of never-ending roadworks on the R21. They're just permanently there, aren't they? Northbound, going up to the Benoni exit, and then just shortly ahead of that, some more roadworks as you line up through the Bopsfontein exit towards the work zone that ends around the Engen services. Crash on the M1 South at Winnie Mandela. Delays coming down into that from Rivonia. Northbound, bound to be having a look. It's very slow. The N3 from Germiston through Edenvale remains busy going north. A crash on the southbound as well before Linksfield, so some extra delays there. And a whole pile-up of traffic around Main Reef and Commando Gate side of Joburg. That's an earlier crash scene. A lot of traffic on the M2 this morning from Benrose coming into a very busy Mike 1 at the Crown Interchange. Durban, the N3 into town, an earlier collision at Spaghetti Junction, still causing a big pushback right through to Paradise Valley. If you're leaving Pinetown, you normally come along that M13. Just stay with it. Go Cowie's Hill and through Westville. Come back onto the N3 at Sherwood. You'll beat that crash quite nicely. Roadworks on the Esplanade, one lane open coming off the Southern Freeway into central Durban, so that's really busy. And Cape Town, a bit of pressure on the N1 driving into town from Kraaifontein through Brackenfell. That's a bit unusual, and it should have cleared by now, but Mitchell's Plain remains under pressure. M7 and the R300 options out to Samora Michelle. Not only roadworks, but also faulty traffic lights as well. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
It's a tough day for Mark. Tight deadlines and challenges everywhere. But Mark can rest easy, because when he bought his Hino 700 2845 truck tractor, he received a complimentary service plan covering up to 210,000 kilometers for short haul and up to 280,000 kilometers for long haul. Nice one, Mark. Visit your dealer today to find out more about this limited time offer. Hino, all the way. T's and C's apply.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May. Only on S3. Open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Hey, listen, there's quite a lot of voice notes that you've sent through, so I do want to wade through as many of them as possible. Let me start with these two that have to do with developments in the United States, the relationship between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and then also what we are seeing playing out on the streets of Los Angeles.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It's Vincent Rsumat here in Midland. Thulas, the split between Donald Trump and Elon Musk has been a surprise to many, and I think this serves them well. These are the people that a few days ago stood side by side to destroy the world. Now they've become bitter enemies. It serves them well. Thank you, Thulas. Vincent here in Midland.
Yeah, Vincent, thank you for that. And I wonder, though, if that spat will continue, because I'm told, I'm not on X, but I'm told that Elon Musk has started deleting some of the, more horrendous posts that he had made about Donald Trump. Maybe horrendous is not the word. I'm no judge of that. But perhaps more controversial posts that he had made. And also there was that talk of them having a call between the two of them. What is reported, though, is that it doesn't seem as if Trump is ready for a détente. They're kind of reaching over and let's talk. Let's try and a thawing of relationships. It would seem it's perhaps desired from one side, not from the other side. So Elon Musk, for example, has been echoing some of what Trump and others have been saying about the situation in Los Angeles. In a way, I don't know, it's seen as he's trying to come back from the cold to say, we don't have to be enemies.
Good morning, Ndade Simelane. What is happening in the US, they act upon the instruction from the president. But if that thing was here in South Africa, the media will go around and say South African president is xenophobic. But because he's a white man, they will never say anything. Kena Matevani Wishielo here in Pretoria.
Yeah, Mativane, I don't know about that. If you watch American media, they do say that. They do say, they do call him all sorts of names. They do say he's racist, xenophobic, and all of those names are being thrown. And more importantly, the legality of what he is doing is actually being questioned, including by the media, but also, if you know the system in the United States, of course, the states themselves in that federal system also pushing back against some of the measures that he has taken.
Morning, Sonia from Achilles Interior. I wouldn't mind Oscar participating in stuff if he told the whole truth. Reeva's family deserves it. And if he came out clean and took his punishment like a man, then go all for it. Anyway, thanks for a great show.
Sure, thank you for that. I hear that, but someone else will say that he did take his punishment in the sense that he was sentenced to that sentence, and in the end, parole is part of the systems of sentencing that we have in this country. And when you reach the point where you are eligible for parole, many prisoners do apply for parole. But I get the sentiment that you are making about tell everything. And I suppose there'll always be that question, because in the end, it came down to a finding of guilty of murder, dolus eventualis, that the killing of a person was reasonably foreseeable. Is it reasonably foreseeable? Okay, let me pause there and leave it there. My law books not in front of me. Let me not make a spectacle out of that. But you and I know that it was on dolus eventualis that says, he ought to have foreseen that a death would result, and therefore he foresaw and reconciled himself with that reality and proceeded anyway to fire those shots into that bathroom on that fateful night. Let me take this one that has to do with the conduct of the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and I suppose the comments by Judge Ratamo Khwatleng.
Thulas, good morning. Regarding to the Ratamo Khwatleng as a judge, commenting on those words, I don't see anything wrong. Mm-hmm. That's how the blacks behave. And when we say it, you can be named by any names. You don't care, but the judge was right. Nothing wrong there. It's the government done run by blacks.
All right. I don't know if you've seen Advocate George Baloyi, who appears on behalf of the state there in that case. Just watch him and watch his professionalism. He's black. I think that's all I will say in response to that. He's black. Watch him and watch his professionalism, his proficiency with the law, his understanding of procedure, and all of those things. Black professional right there, sitting in front of the very same judge that you are saying was right. So just watch and juxtapose what the judge's indictment is on the professionalism of black professionals, and then watch the other professionals in that room and see how they behave and see if that tallies with that sentiment.
I think it's important that your guest on the judgment does not mislead and misinform us in trying to make his point on what Judge Khwatleng said. It's not true that blacks were only allowed to practice after 1994. We've had people like George Muntsiwa, who had a practice in the Joburg CBD, a practice that was then taken over by Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela. Let's not distort facts when we're trying to make a point. Debu here. Thanks for that.
Debu, thank you for that. I don't think there was any allusion to black South Africans only being able to practice after 1994. That would not have been accurate in any case. I think what the allusion was, and perhaps if it wasn't clear, maybe I should apologize for that. The allusion was the initial difficulties in accessing the professions on an equal footing. Those were objectively there, including those people that you talk about, the likes of Nelson Mandela and O.R. Tambo, when they started practicing. All of those were the realities that they had to deal with, and over the decades, especially under apartheid, those remained in place. And I guess the commentary is that there was that element that needed to be, dealt with, and placing black professionals in the legal profession on the same footing. So to the extent that it was understood as being a suggestion that black people were only able to start practicing law in 1994. That was not the intended meaning of that conversation at all. It would have been completely inaccurate.
Just go with the... Good morning to Thulasizwe and the listeners. With regards to the judge in the Senzo Meyiwa issue, I think context in this thing matters. Context is everything, and the motives behind what you would have said. It didn't mean to harm or say anything. He meant it in a very good light. So I think we are over exaggerating the issue of race and racism in this country. Thank you, Sydney Newbank.
Sydney, thank you for that. I do wish you had then gone on to explain what good light you are talking about, because part of the reaction is that people are failing to see in what good light was this meant to have been. A generalization about South Africa run by blacks based on someone has pointed out that this was a request that he was at liberty to either grant or deny. So in the objective circumstances of that legal professional in front of him, so what's the need then to link it to South Africa run by blacks? How is the request by Advocate Mnisi reflective of quote-unquote South Africa run by blacks? I don't know. So I do wish you had said a bit more. But anyway, we're completely out of time. Thank you for listening. This has been the Monday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. Stay tuned. The Talking Point with Kete Mutlatlana is coming up next, and that's coming up just after the news.
In our top stories, Western Cape Police probe deadly taxi-related incident and MK Party tables a motion to reprimand the Finance Minister. Good morning. A man has been shot dead and a child wounded in a suspected taxi-related incident in Luandle Strand over the weekend. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says officers found the victim in a vehicle on Vulindlela Street. The wounded 8-year-old child was taken to hospital. Swartboy says police are investigating cases of murder and attempted murder.
The suspects fled the scene and they are yet to be arrested. The motive for this attack is believed to be taxi-related. Luandle police registered cases of murder and attempted murder for further investigation. We appeal to anyone with information to please call Crime Stop on 08600 10111 or alternatively use the mobile application MySaps anonymously.
The Forum for South Africa's urged the NPA to drop charges against 5 Walter Sisulu University students accused of arson and public violence. The group warns that prosecuting the students could ruin their future with criminal records. The students took part in last week's demonstration after the Umtata Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape granted bail to residence manager Manelisi Mampane, who's accused of killing student Sisonke Mbolekwa during a protest